Hey guys, welcome back to the Web Design Decal. Uh, this is the last real lecture I'll be giving this semester and maybe ever for the Web Design Decal. Um, and yeah, we're going to talk about design paths and what to do after this class if you're interested in design and you want to hone your skills a bit more. So yeah, you want to do design. What's next? This lecture is less of telling you what things that rather than telling you what things you should learn. It does a little bit of that, but what the goal is really is to teach you how to learn more design stuff on your own, because really that's how you get better at it. And it's kind of hard to find resources of people who just tell you explicitly what you need to know. And a lot of design and developing your skills in design is figuring things out on your own and figuring out what works for you. So basically the how I'm going to do it is I'm going to talk through kind of they're not exactly design career paths, although I tried to pick role titles. So eventually, if you're looking for a job or an internship, like kind of what they're looking for and like what kind of skills you would be building and like what role they would be applicable for. But yeah, I'm going through a bunch of different kind of like design paths is what I decide to call them. Different types of design. I'll do my best to define them and kind of talk about how you might be able to get into it. And then at the end, kind of how you can continue practicing and growing as a designer in general. And hopefully that helps, because I know I needed that when I was getting into design, and I still feel like I need it somewhat. So yeah, this helps. First, we're going to talk about visual design, which in my opinion is super important for just any design. Like, you need visual theory to back up your ideas. Having ideas is a main part of design, but you really need to have a good understanding of visuals. So visual design isn't the same thing as graphic design, because graphic design more implies that you're making the graphics. And this is kind of what that would be a part of visual design, but it's in general how things are going to look, and it's a focus that you can have in product and UI UX design, and it's probably what you're going to start out doing in the industry, under just a general product design or visual design role. Basically, the tools that you would want to look into are Figma, Sketch, Framer, other prototyping tools. Bonus points for Adobe Illustrator and Photoshop, because they're just more technical in terms of visuals. And a couple like main skills are graphic design, because being able to make those graphics on your own really gives you a lot more independence and freedom to create what you want. And it also kind of mitigates how generic your design looks, because everybody will go use the same free resources. Um, everybody knows about Flat Icon, the Noun project, and stuff. And I feel like if visual design is really something that you want to get into, you're going to have to practice making those assets on your own and just having an understanding of how to make them on your own, even if you're not doing it. Then usability and branding. We've talked about visual design throughout this class. I'm sure you can learn more about those. I feel like the best sources on how to hone your skills in visual design are from YouTube and software tutorials. And what I mean by that is Figma or Adobe, they create their own tutorials on how to use their products and kind of like practice files on how you can follow along with the tutorials and create new stuff. And yeah, I feel like visual design is just a very common sense next step in developing design skills, in my opinion. That being said, like a lot of this is based on personal experience and like I guess what I've learned, and things on the internet and other designers might tell you something different, but this I'm just trying to transfer what I've learned to you guys. This is kind of going the next step with visual design and graphic design is UI illustration. And I feel like it is not totally necessary for doing more web design or more product design, as we've talked about. It does give your site or whatever you're making a unique feel, but I feel like you need to hone more into the artistic and graphic design avenues than web design. You still need to understand the same color and visual design theories and kind of how these illustrations would be placed and used and interpreted. But it is a lot more artistic, and totally understand if this is not your thing. And I feel like it's definitely not an industry requirement, but it is a plus. And I don't know, just another thing that you can focus on if you so desire. So yeah, drawing. I know pixel art is also popular, but in general, like digital art and illustration, again, YouTube and software tutorials are probably best for this, with kind of more of an emphasis on YouTube here. I feel like there are a lot more great tutorials because the software just tells you how to make stuff, but not kind of how to be creative with it, if that makes sense. Motion design, we've kind of touched on it a little bit in this class, but just a very little bit. And for this, you would learn InVision, which requires Sketch and Adobe After Effects. If you want to do like Figma or Adobe XD. And it's basically how your page is going to move. If they're moving components like animations as the page moves, or, you know, just any moving component within the interface that you're creating. Again, YouTube software tutorials are the best help. I promise those won't be the only sources that I'm recommending, but I feel like for a lot of these visual kind of visually based design paths, YouTube is going to be a great source, because I feel like it's better to watch how things are done rather than just reading a list of instructions, in my personal opinion. So if you want a better example of what I really mean by motion design, here's just like a brief clip. We've talked about that. This is kind of interaction as well, but which I'll talk about in a second, but the way things are animated through each step, the loading animations, things like that, that's motion design. If it'll let me skip. Okay, interaction design is kind of similar. As you can see, there's like a bunch of different skills that are just other paths in design, because I feel like it requires more knowledge. Uses the same type of tools, because I feel like it combines motion design, visual design, and UI UX. So interaction is about how the user might interact specifically with buttons in your product, and just kind of different parts of the interface that you're creating. Again, I'm kind of assuming that it's like in the same thread of web design or just digital products throughout most of this. I'll let you know when that changes. Yeah, I feel like prototyping and motion design, visual design, and UI UX are super important, because interaction is mostly about usability. And it's kind of taking motion and visual design knowledge to make it usable for people, and kind of understanding the way that people think about and interpret the interactions, for a lack of a better word. That's, I feel like, in terms of, I guess, practical skill and how to use the tools, the software tutorials are best. And then in terms of how people are interpreting things and the usability of it, I would say social media is a great way to learn more about this, because you have tons of experienced designers on Twitter and on Instagram that are talking about what's working and what's not working in the industry, and in general, just people commenting on their life experience, like whether or not the regular people are frustrated with how the Google Suite icons look or whatever, although that's not interaction. But in the image here, I have screenshots from a Twitter post by a designer about how confusing this sliding interaction is in Spotify. You don't know whether or not like what the current state of your Spotify syncing is from this switch. It's just super confusing. Like, if you flip the switch, are you enabling it, or is it currently enabled? And yeah, don't do this. I linked the Twitter post in the slide. You should be able, if you want to, you can read what people's suggestions are and how to fix it. In general, that's a super good way to learn more about stuff. Then in general, UI, UX, and product design, which is personally what I kind of want to do. I feel like the tools and knowledge are super general for this, and it's less about knowing a particular tool, so like Figma, Sketch, etc., and more about building skills. So kind of practicing everything I talked about in the Designing with Impact lecture, which includes user research, prototyping, less of an emphasis on having good visual designs and more on ideas. So yeah, that's why I put problem solving on this list. And I think another thing that I didn't put on here is another skill is just having a lot of general knowledge and having a lot of just kind of random knowledge. You will, when you design something, you develop a very strong understanding for that particular thing and that particular subject, and it can get insanely specific. And you want to be able to have that breadth to apply yourself to so many different situations in different fields, because yeah, product design can really be part of anything from like government to biology to I don't know, Silicon Valley as we currently think about it. And yeah, I think the best ways to learn about it, practice, which I'll talk about later. But in order to practice, you need to know what to practice. So reading online articles, which is like, I don't know, there'll be a lot of Medium articles and blog posts about it. But also there are a lot of sites that are out there that kind of talk about how you can go through the process and, you know, dipping your toe into these fields. And that really helped me when I was starting out. Also reading other people's portfolios, how they approached projects before, and their case studies. I'll talk about this more later in the building your portfolio section. Yeah, the reason why I have everything listed out on every slide is I hope that you can go back to this eventually and you're like, okay, here's what I know now. Maybe here's some other things that I want to know in the future, or just, I don't know, it's kind of a reference for you when you're going forward. Design systems, they're kind of like a new thing in the industry, and it's quite new to an extent that there aren't a ton of jobs related to it, but it kind of combines branding with visual design. something we didn't really get to talk about was style guides. So basically having a cohesive model of how all things related to the company, from advertising to the interface, how they're all cohesive with one another in terms of style and message and goals. Design systems is designing what that cohesive guide is from a psychological and kind of semantic level. So kind of like the high order conceptual level of like, what do we want our company and our product to be like to other people? How do we want it to be interpreted? Like who is our audience? Things like that. And then you go down into the minutia of like, here's our color palette, here's our font. Like how do they play into those high concepts? And again, that has kind of less emphasis on tools and more on how you're thinking about it, understanding the psychology, the branding, the business side, as well as the visual design side. And to get into that, which is what I'm kind of trying to do sort of, is reading online articles. They're academic ones that are more about like social psychology and behavioral economics and marketing and stuff. But there's also like blog posts and Medium and stuff like that. And I feel like reading for this helps more because it's kind of hard to do this as a side project. Because I was kind of very focused on like something that a company needs specifically. Then kind of moving away from digital products, if you are interested in kind of design in general, and maybe you took this class to be like, hey, maybe web design of the types of design. If you like the same type of problem solving and maybe prototyping, but you're like, hey, I want to like make things. So in the picture, there's backpacks, coffee makers. I think that's all that's in there actually. But industrial design is basically designing how things will look. So how your phone looks, how your microwave looks, how the things in there look, and how people interact with each part of it. So I know that things that are shown are drawn by hand, but that's totally not necessary. There's also SolidWorks and other CAD software, 3D modeling in general. And I think the general skills there are kind of with the UI, UX, usability stuff that I've kind of introduced you to. So just in general, designing with impact, and then kind of breaking into materials and mechanical design and sustainability. I don't have it on there, but now that I think about it, branding kind of also feeds into it because how the product looks really determines branding. A really good example of this is like packaging design, which would not use CAD necessarily, could use Figma or other like prototyping and visual software that I've mentioned. Yeah, Target has done like a really great job of changing their packaging like over the years to fit exactly what is in and what's trendy and what's appealing to people. And they've just done like a phenomenal job making their packaging look desirable and beautiful. Go to a Target store or look online because, you know, looking online is probably safer during this time, especially their food products. It's just beautiful. That's kind of part of graphic design, though, and branding, but they all kind of feed in together, as you can see. For industrial design, I would say YouTube because it's more visual again, and Medium as well. It's a super cool field. If you're still experimenting in design, it might be cool to look into. So that's kind of like the last design path. Feel like maybe we'll talk about other things to do if you're more interested in coding, maybe next week or something, or you can email us and ask. But there are kind of other like interdisciplinary things that kind of depend on knowing both coding and design. if you're interested in that, this is just kind of an overview of like specifically what can you do in design after this class. So now what I'm gonna do, now that I've kind of gone over like, here are general topics that you can look into. Now here is like, how do you get that practice with those things? Like you've already honed your skills or you're working on trying to hone them. How do you like start trying to get a job? How do you like start trying to pivot your life practically into seriously pursuing design? And this is again based on my experience, but also like now that I do have kind of a community of other designers, kind of learning from them as well, like what opportunities are out there. There's way more stuff than when I transitioned to doing design. And yeah, I will just get into it. So challenging yourself is super important. So kind of like, how are you going to develop the skills? You've learned about them, you've watched the videos. From what I've been talking about for the last 30 minutes. So in order to challenge yourself and kind of really hone the skills on another level, other than just having tutorial knowledge, even though that's like the first bullet point, you can have small exercises. So like not a full side project, but maybe like, oh, what if I made this thing, just to like practice using the tools in that way? Or here's some like random design problem that I'm thinking of, like how am I going to solve it? And it doesn't, you can just do it in a few hours or in 1 hour or just like a few minutes, and that'll really help hone your skills on kind of like a day-to-day level. On a kind of like, I don't know, more long-term level, design-a-thons and hackathons sometimes have design related stuff in it. Those are super cool. I have never made the deadline to sign up for one ever in my life, but I didn't have people to sign up with me. Sad. It's fine though. Yeah, they're design-a-thons and hackathons that you should try out. They look super cool and fun. I think another thing that they can be called is like a design jam or something like that. You'll find them. They're great. There are online design challenges. Just be careful about that. If you do too many of them, they kind of become redundant or just taking time away from real projects. Design workshops also helps you learn more stuff in kind of a more practical and condensed way. And side projects are like really the main way to learn. Just doing personal projects that you're really passionate about. And as long as you put effort into it and you're learning new stuff, then it's worth it. Then building your portfolio. So you want to put those side projects somewhere, whether or not you get those side projects from yourself or from a company, or I don't know, from where, or from class. You're going to want to put them in a case study, which is basically a write-up or like presentation that you have usually on a personal website about your project, how you approached it. There's so many online resources, from YouTube videos to like recruiter posts on social media to Medium articles and blog posts about like how to do case studies. But even though there's all those resources, I highly recommend you take advantage of coffee chats and networking, as much as I hate it too. Like getting that peer review by somebody who's actually in the industry or by somebody who has more experience, just like another set of eyes on it, will really help you present the case study and your thought process in a way that'll help you get a job and also like show off how great your work is and like all your passion. In building your portfolio and your portfolio site, and yes, it should be a website probably there are a bunch of portfolio collections on Bestfolios and CoFolios, and like there are tons of other sites like that. Don't plagiarize, just use it as inspiration. But also I know all of those, or not all of them, but like many of them are super try hard, super elaborate and fancy. If you don't have time for that, it's like, it's totally fine if it's not perfect. Like as long as you're getting your ideas across and it looks like semi-fine, then you'll probably get something and they'll recognize that you're good. Like having projects that are good are more important than your portfolio being perfect, in my opinion. Well, that being said, the portfolio does need to be done. Yeah, in order for you to apply to things. Another important facet of design is community. So we talked about the coffee chats and having peer review. I feel like another big thing in design is collaboration. So even though working on design projects on your own might be cool and you're learning a lot of stuff, you learn even more by working with other people, and in the industry you're actually going to work with other people. So participate in design communities virtually or in clubs, in consultancies. There's a Design at Berkeley organization in Slack run by other people in the consultancy that I'm part of, Berkeley Innovation, as well as other great designers that are at Berkeley. They created that resource for people. Social media, Medium and blogging, kind of those resources that I've been talking about before. For some reason, designers really like to get into that, but you can also like start documenting your own process, and employers kind of like that too sometimes, because that kind of shows your dedication and passion towards it. And also you kind of have like public evidence that you're working on stuff basically, but totally not mandatory. There's also mentorship programs where you get paired with professional designers and they give you advice and will check out your resume and portfolio for you. There's also ways that you can give back to the design community. So as I said, like doing the blogging and kind of virtual teaching, but you can also do decals, and there's a new club on campus called IDOT, which is teaching kids in high school and maybe middle school, I could be wrong about that, about design. And that's super cool because I feel like people should learn that design is a real career earlier in life, especially because I changed career paths. And yeah, having a design community is super important in design because we're all probably going to see each other around like in the industry. And it just helps if we all help each other, because I know that like solid academic resources are hard to come by, super hard to get into the design innovation classes, super hard to get into like other design related classes unless you're a senior basically, or unless it's summer. And I realize that's not an option for a lot of people. So if you want to get into it sooner, leaning on a design community is really useful. And then just providing for that community once you've kind of learned what you can. But I feel like you'll always continue learning from it. So yeah, that was kind of a long rant about things that you can do after, and my suggestions and just kind of general suggestions. But I guess my final recommendations for what to do after this class is just kind of pursue what's actually passionate, or like what you're actually passionate about, because it'll show in your projects and just kind of when you're talking about it and presenting it to people that like where your passion really lies. And I think that is super important just in general for like life happiness, and also just exploring, developing that kind of breadth of knowledge that I talked about, like be open-minded, and just keep learning about stuff is really the main thing. I feel like there's always more to learn in design and just in life, and it'll always find some way to be applicable, whether it's like like no matter how far away it is from design, um, it it'll find a way to be applicable, depending on like what field you're trying to go into. But I don't know, I found recently in my work that random things that I thought would never be useful have become useful, uh, while designing. And I think just having a variety of experiences is the most important thing, in being good at design. Not to say that I'm good, but it definitely helps. Uh, and yeah, I guess these are closing notes because the only thing that's left is next week. I think we're going to have a panel instead of a lecture. So I just want to thank you guys for such a great semester. This will be my last semester as an instructor of the web design decal and only semester as an instructor of the web design decal. And I love teaching so much, and I really enjoyed doing every lecture and seeing what you guys are making in the final project check-ins just makes me so happy and proud of you guys. And I really do read the feedback, and I'm really just so grateful for this opportunity, to teach people. And I really wish that the internet hadn't gone out yesterday, so I could have done this when more people were available, probably. But yeah, I genuinely wish you all good luck in your design career and like otherwise in life. And always feel free to reach out. I'll do my best to respond to you. I know like forget to respond sometimes because I do the thing where I respond in my head, but just email me again. I'll probably respond immediately. Yeah, thank you so much. And it was really great getting to meet you guys. And you guys are super talented and creative, and you'll make great stuff. So yeah, thanks for listening to my super long rant once again. Bye. Stop.